So we're going to jump back into the testimony of Richard Morgan KC to the Post Office Horizon IT inquiry, and he says that he was concerned that Horizon could be tampered with, that someone could edit the data, and that's something that's shared by Stephen Dilley, who was a solicitor that he was working with, his instructing solicitor, saying that he was concerned that sub-postmasters could alter the Horizon figures and that Horizon wasn't actually, the data couldn't necessarily be vouched for. Richard Morgan relies on the fact there that why would a submaster create a loss that they would then owe to the post office, which is indeed an interesting point. But presumably one of the things being driven at here is if the sub-postmaster could edit it, who else could edit it as well? There seems to be a certain degree of whataboutism, because even though there's concerns that they've got that they can't even prove a loss has occurred, they seem to want to divert attention away to the fact that Mr. Castleton has signed some of the accounts off and ignore the many calls to the helpline that he made at the same time, questioning the accuracy of the accounts. Let's jump into the inquiry.
Can we look, please, at WITN 046 0046 0100? It's Mr. Dilley's witness statement from whom we've just heard, and he was one of your instructing solicitors. And can we just look at page 34, please? And look at paragraph 67. Just scroll up just so you can get the date. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Conference on the 11th of September at your chambers. He says in 67, at that point in time, we were considering and developing case strategy. I can see from the note, we believe we had a difficulty proving the loss.
Well, that's quite significant because that's the fundamental part of your case. No loss, no case.
From memory, this was not because those instructing us had any doubt that there was a loss. It was rather a question of how it could be demonstrated. From my note and distant recollection, I believe it was in part because Miss Oglesby had told us that a sub-postmaster could change data inputted into Horizon after the event. One idea council had was we should take the starting position by way of an opening audit and the ending position a closing audit and seeing what the difference was. One alternative was to rely on the admission in the cash accounts that Mr. Castleton had signed. This evidence seems to suggest that the nice legal point that I've been calling it was a consequence of a difficulty or a belief in a difficulty in proving the loss. Can you see that?
Yeah, yes, I can.
And I guess the point being made here is it's almost saying, well, we can't even prove it's a loss, but let's go and look over here at Mr. Castleton having signed all these statements and try to ignore the fact we can't prove a loss despite it being a fundamental part of the case.
Yeah.
Was that something that was made clear to you? Never mind your nice legal point, Mr. Morgan. There is in fact a difficulty in proving losses using Horizon.
I don't remember that forming any part of my thought process. I don't remember a specific fact of anybody saying the sub-postmaster could change the data input into Horizon was part of the consideration. I think in my witness statement I'd already said that I was concerned about whether data could be changed.
But you've pitched that at a theoretical,
yes.
Any computer system can have data changed.
Yes, rather than this is what somebody's going to say in this case.
Yeah.
Also, well, I mean, Mr. Dilley says what he says, but why would a sub-postmaster change the data to show that he owed money to the post office? But there we are.
Indeed, they probably wouldn't, but then who else can change the data? We now know about remote access. It's more the job of the defence is to cast doubt on the prosecution, and it seems even the prosecution were casting doubt on the prosecution on certain points, namely the actual loss having occurred.
Anyway, there we are. That's what he says.
So you say that, in fact, you developed this point at the abstract or academic level, not because of the kind of thing that's recorded here, that there was actually a difficulty in proving the loss on this system.
As I sit here now, Mr. Beer, yes, that's my recollection. I don't have any recollection of developing it as a responsive strategy. My recollection, correct or incorrect, perfect or imperfect, is that this was a high-level theoretical issue.
Can we look, please, at poll 307, 1081. This is an email dated the 21st of August 2006, and you are neither a sender nor a recipient, but it refers to your view or something that you are said to have said. If we just look under overview.
Yes.
So this is Mr. Beezer writing to Miss Talbot, copying Mr. Dilley in. Richard Morgan believed the case to be one with a good chance of success, but he did warn that was dependent upon the accountancy evidence stacking up in our favour. I return to this below, and also upon acceptance of the cost in taking this matter to trial. We have discussed cost before. I also return to this point below. A further point made by Richard Morgan was that we should endeavour to move the main area of focus in the case away from the Horizon system if possible. Richard suggested a method to do that would be to prove, if possible, the physical cash losses at the Marine Drive branch by reference to all the other documentation created around the transactions, not simply by reference to what was in fact recorded on the Horizon system. So, for example, when a cheque is deposited there, is, as I understand, a counterfoil filled out, which is sent off daily by the sub-postmaster, with all cheques eventually ending up at EDS. If the Horizon system was later found not to match the physical remittances, an error notice is generated. One of the issues in this case is that there were few error notices generated, suggesting that the physical remittances did match the Horizon inputs. Clearly, to attempt to look into such matters in the level of detail likely to be required will be costly and time-consuming. And then if we just look at the foot of the page, please. One other point raised by Richard was the integrity of the Fujitsu product generally. Just to confirm, I understand that Royal Mail Post Office know of no issues with the Fujitsu system and are confident it operates correctly. Please discuss with me if you have a different, over the page, view. Thank you.
So, I mean, it's interesting here. I mean, he's basically saying I found an easier way to win the case here, but there is a suggestion in there that they want to avoid using Horizon, not merely that they've found an easier way. Oh, we found an easier way, so we can put Horizon to one side. It's can we sidestep Horizon, which would suggest someone somewhere who's influencing matters may have concerns about Horizon, and these concerns are likely to come from the sheer number of defendants that are highlighting Horizon issues as a point of defence.
If we just go back to the end of the third paragraph, please, on page 1. Just scroll up a little bit. Thank you. So the paragraph beginning a further point that we should endeavour to move the main area of focus away from Horizon, if possible. And then at the end of the paragraph, one of the issues in this case is that there were few error notices generated, suggesting physical remittances did match the Horizon inputs. On the Post Office's case, i.e. that Mr. Horizon had made genuine losses.
Sorry, Mr. Castleton had made general.
Yes, Mr. Castleton had made genuine losses. Would that absence of error notices suggest an unreliability of the Horizon reporting, as you understood it?
No.
Why not?
Because the absence of error notices, according to this note, suggests that the physical remittances did match the Horizon inputs.
Isn't that a problem on the case? That there was a match between the actual cash and the inputs?
Not that I understand. Look, so I'm trying to reconstruct what was going on a long time ago.
I understand.
And this isn't my note, and I don't know how it all works. But I thought the fact was that the Horizon inputs did match up with what Mr. Castleton was signing off. And that did, at the end of the day, show that there was a loss.
I mean, is the point not being driven at here, then the physical remittances that you want to check to sidestep Horizon are likely to match the inputs into Horizon? Isn't more the question what Horizon is outputting, which goes to Mr. Castleton's points to the helpline saying the computer is not doing this right because I am entering it right, but it is producing these wildly inaccurate numbers.
And so the fact that there were few error notices suggested that the figures produced by Horizon and the figures produced by Mr. Castleton were the same and did show a loss. But that's by the by, isn't it?
Not really, because if somebody's there's a bit of a conflating of issues, I think, here, that we're saying if the inputs were right, the output from Horizon was right, and actually we know due to bugs that actually, that have been admitted by the Post Office, Fujitsu and literally everybody, that actually the outputs weren't right. We've already identified things like duplicate transactions and other issues going wrong, so the inputs being right does not make the output right. The underlying process that sits in between those two will determine whether it's right. If there's a bug in the process, you can put correct inputs into your heart's content and it can spit out incorrect output.